the International Union, we're happy that the membership has ratified an agreement. We think that the agreement represents equity for our members, represents equity for the company. And we hope with this settlement, labor stability for the next 3 years, that the company can get the kind of business that we'll be able to come back 3 years from now and again achieve equity for the workers that we represent. I've been, over the past 28 years, I've attended many of these meetings. Very few that I've attended have ever been rejected. But in my opinion, there were several things that caused the rejection. First of all, there's a young element in the plant that has no concept of collective bargaining and how you go about collective bargaining. In fact, in that meeting on June 8th, many of those people felt that all you've got to do is to go back and ask the company for these new benefits and they'll give them to you. You haven't even asked for them. And they had no idea that our contract had terminated. We had no alternative but to strike. The bell wages, it's no secret that the bell wages have always been ahead of the industry, and they will continue to be ahead of the industry and the area following this settlement.
Well, quite naturally, management of the company is very happy that the membership of Local 218 ratified the settlement agreement this morning. In the face of the adverse elements that you saw here today, as well as some that Mr. Stone has mentioned in his statement, we are particularly gratified at the percentage of the vote in favor of the agreement.
The Vietnamese forces are getting progressively better. They are beginning to take over more and more of the battlefield burden. I expect this trend to continue. Certainly, additional troops can be withdrawn and replaced by Vietnamese troops. If through the Paris negotiations there is some mutual withdrawal of North Vietnamese troops as well as American troops. This can also take place if the enemy himself de-escalates or withdraws from the battlefield. And finally, of course, if the Vietnamese develop the capacity to take over more and more of the battlefield burden, they can replace U.S. troops, and they can therefore be reduced in numbers in South Vietnam.
Well, I think it's going to be difficult for this legislature to pass a 2 years appropriations bill. It may well be that the legislature may end up passing another 1 year bill and then putting it on the governor's desk for his action. One reason why it's going to be difficult for a 2 year appropriations bill is that we know, and this is one of the points that Lieutenant Governor Ben Barnes used, that there will be a surplus of about $100 million in our Treasury next summer if Governor Smith would just waited until that time. So it's going to be hard to strap on the backs of the taxpayers of Texas $100 million that wouldn't be necessary if Governor Smith would just have waited until next summer.
I'm going to make it clear in my message to the legislature when I recall them that this will be a 2 year bill. And I believe the Constitution is rather clear in that in a special session, the legislature can consider only those subjects and the recommendations made by the governor.
So effectively, they'll be limited to what you specify.
If I read the Constitution right, that would be the way it would be.
And I think this has emphasized, without question, the need of annual sessions. The people of Texas are going to vote on that on August the 5th. Texas runs its business now on a 2-year budget, according to Governor Smith's thinking. And that's outdated, it's obsolete. No business operates on a 2-year basis. They all operate on a 1-year basis. And the operation of the Texas government is the biggest business of all. And we should operate on a 1-year budget, not a 2-year.
Now, there could be considerations, certainly, that I would give, just as an example. Let's assume that by an overwhelming vote, the people of this state decided to have the legislature meeting every year when they vote August the 5th. Well, I think this would throw another light on it, and if it did, why, we would take another look, but I just can't conceive of the people wanting the legislature meeting every year in Austin.
Do you favor that?
No, I never have favored that. I think that you can do a much better job meeting biannually. You know, government was never created to make a profit. Government exists to provide essential services and programs for the people. And I think that the longer you plan, the better you can plan in a more constructive way.
What have you heard from your constituents?
Well, I have had quite a few of them call me, just the average people on the streets, and just to put it bluntly, they're hopping mad over the governor's action. And quite a few of them were inquiring about what can be done in regard to the veto action that the governor took.
What can be done?
Well, one person was so hopping mad that he wanted to know if the governor couldn't be impeached.
Well, anything the movement, anything the system can do like this can only gain SDS adherence. Anytime the system operates in such a reactionary backlash method and has statements that are such ideologically ridiculous as is made on TV, to the thinking young person, it can do nothing but just continue to show the inability of the system to react to a movement like this. I don't think it's a good thing, because it gives a lot of people a lot of problems, and it's no fun being hassled by the FBI and having your phone tapped. But at the same time, this overreaction by the system and this reaction in not a rational way, but in a non-rational way, just shows up the fallacies in the system.
Talking about phone taps and being put in FBI files, is this limited to Columbia, Cornell, or other parts of the country? What about around the Dallas-Fort Worth area?
Well, the leaders at North Texas, for example, have been told by police and by people who say they're working for the police that our houses are under surveillance. We operate under the idea that our phones are being tapped. These methods are being employed so widely in the United States today, it's just a little naive to believe they're not being employed against you just because you happen to live in a certain part of the country.